Helldivers is now just about 2 weeks, so that's 14 days into their 60-day plan to save the game. And so far, we've seen all talk and no action, kind of contrary to game director Michael's call to action hot on the heels of the Escalation of Freedom update. Or is it? Let's talk. Welcome back to the channel. This is 𝗡𝗘𝗥𝗙 signing back in for duty after a nice weekend away. But the interesting thing with Helldivers is that it continues to make headlines, even on Saturday and Sunday. And we've got to swing back around and take a look at that studio 60-day manifesto. There's also comments from the CCO, some expected articles, and much, much more. So stay tuned for all of it. And by the way, I also want to apologize for not including it in last video. It was just running far too long. But yes, your top 3 comments will return for this one, I promise. Just in case you haven't done so already, please take a moment to hit subscribe. It's free, and it really helps promote this video and channel to those far reaches of YouTube. And while you're at it, take a few seconds more to ring that notifications bell so you never miss one of my future upload alerts. And now, let's get stuck into all the latest from Helldivers. Time me. Here goes. As it's time for your 30-second Superstore reset, and for the next 18 hours, you can pick up the Light Gunner lightweight armor with extra padding for even more armor, the matching Light Gunner helmet, the Dreadnought helmet, and the FS61 Dreadnought heavy body armor with servo-assisted for increased yeet range and plus 50% limb health. And as always, the Superstore only takes super creds, which you can loot while in missions. There. How'd I do? Was that less than 30 seconds? Let me know in the comment section. Moving over to the Galactic map, and I did my best to aid in the spread of managed democracy over this past weekend. As any chance I got, I hit the matchmaker and completed an operation. Now, the way it currently stands, with just under 24 hours to go, we are done with the terminated part of the kill count, and Esker, Istanu, and Pandion 24 are all under our control, leaving just those pesky 5 million Bile Titan kills standing between us and 65 medals. And by the way, I can't remember ever seeing a major order have such a large payout. Anyways, you can see that we're about 91% on the progress bar for those BTs, and depending on the number of divers who can take the time to log on today, we stand a very good chance of completing this one. And looky here, another Bile Titan daily order for 15 medals, and this time it is requiring us to kill 8 Bile Titans, and of course, those kills are spread across the squad. Quick tips to help out here: the normals, commandos, eats, spears, and recoilless are strong, but sometimes inconsistent, especially if you land those headshots. But I am seeing much better kill rates with the orbital rail cannon strike, with its only real downside being those long cooldown timers. Do what you can, knock down 8 of those monsters and pick up 15 medals for whatever you still need to buy from the war bonds. Speaking to that current major order and Destructoid. Man, I haven't cited them here in a Helldivers video in forever. Anyways, they apparently ran with this headline: Chargers are making Helldiver 2's current major order much harder than it needs to be. They must be stopped. And they go on to say, Terminids are definitely the easiest of the 2 factions currently in Helldivers 2 for players to battle in missions. However, Chargers, the heavily armored tanks of the Terminid ranks, chase players down, ram them while they're standing still, and generally cause havoc with everyone's plans. Agreed on all those points. With the current major order requiring players to focus so much on Terminid missions, players are sharing their frustrations with these behemoths, as well as strategies for dealing with them. And then they go on to cite examples taken from Reddit of Chargers climbing vertical faces, crashing through barriers, insane turning radiuses. I mean, you get the picture here, along with a bit of intel, as there are reports that the airburst launcher can one-tap these critters. But just be careful, because divers wear paper mache compared to a Charger. If you know, you know. IGN took the high road with an already much covered topic, quote, Helldivers 2 PSN review bomb cape MIA, as Arrowhead awaits clarity on game being sold in more countries. The country issue rumbles on. Now, if you've seen any of my previous videos, the PSN mandatory linking, the subsequent review bomb mayhem, where PC divers won their autonomy from Sony, well, it also saw a large portion of planet Earth excluded from enjoying Sony's fastest selling game of all time. Man, the irony of this is just incredible, right? Now, from my findings, this thing still seems to be in the negotiations phase, and apparently the review bomb cape is kind of caught in the crossfire, waiting for whatever outcome is set to materialize. Serving as the appetizer for our next topic is VG247 with this one, quote, Helldivers 2 boss man 𝗡𝗘𝗥𝗙 rocks up on Discord for the first time in a little bit to answer about 10 million questions and reflect on the criticism. Quote, the worst thing would have been if we effed up and no one cared. Johan goes on to add, it's hard. It's a tricky situation. The criticism is valid, but it causes low morale, and low morale causes slow development speed. Talk about a negative spiral. 𝗡𝗘𝗥𝗙 said in response to a player asking how the game's developers are currently feeling, quote, I think it's important for us to reiterate to the team that criticism happens because people care. Before I continue on, let me know if you think that's the exact right approach to all of this from Johan, and I'm referring to those quoted statements in that VG247 article. Personally, I think he's right on. And I say this from my own experience when speaking with other studios and how they approach customer complaints. Now, in the past, I was extremely fortunate to get to sit down with Rebecca Ford from Digital Extremes, the makers of Warframe, and we had a lengthy and very candid talk about customer service, community interaction, and how Digital Extremes kind of tackles that side of game development. By the way, I'll leave a link to that video down in the video description in case you want to check it out for yourself later. But the gist of what she said was that DE wants the feedback, even the rude and sometimes heated comments as well, because that simple fact shows that the customer, the player, still cares. The delivery is rough, but the intention is coming from a place of love, if you can understand that. For example, they get comments like, I'm pissed, you ruined my favorite weapon. I'm going to let you know that. And I'm going to let you know that I'm pissed, but I'm also reaching out for understanding, to get my feelings out there so that Digital Extremes can take into account and make it right. It's a fascinating concept for sure, right? And they would much rather see those heated comments than no comments at all, because no comments mean that the players are done. They are done engaging and they have lost them. And in a gaming world where players can often be seen as the enemy, it's refreshing to see a studio kind of go 180 from the norm. And you can love Warframe or you can hate it, but that community concept shows in the player base numbers because they are consistently strong. You could also read more into that morale comment from 𝗡𝗘𝗥𝗙, how he says it's tricky, the criticism is valid, but it causes low morale and the end result is slow development speed. Now, I'm pretty sure that Johan does not frequent my YouTube playlist, or, I could be wrong, and he could just leave a response on this video or any of my Helldivers videos to let us know he's listening and he's actually watching any of my content. But as you look at the development cycle he laid out in his comments, it comes back to decisions made by the studio. I may be wrong here, but I saw little to no community complaints about the Railgun 1.0. The change was on them, though. That was on Arrowhead. The incendiary breaker, the flamethrower, flame effects, the commando, or the laser guard dog rover are not on the community's, oh my god, we're too OP, you need to fix this right now, game-breaking bug alert top 10 lists. But the studio has gone in, waving the realism flag and has made changes or is prepping the community for things to come. I haven't seen the community begging Arrowhead to cut magazine counts in half because, we simply have too much ammo on our hands. I mean, you get the picture here. On a side note, I would also guess that the community was good with Helldivers 1.0. Just add on more stuff to blow up some baddies and build on that iteration of the game. And I'm going to throw in another prediction here. I would bet that if the studio would revert to that version of the game with the current set of weapons and stratagems we have now, the player counts would spike back up to over 100,000 plus. But that's just my feelings, just my 2 cents there. But again, the criticism is squarely and fairly aimed at items that the developers have labeled as needing adjustments, or what does they say again? Oh, it's not working as intended and it is therefore bugged. Johan also gives us a bit more insight into the flamethrower and why it was changed. Quote, so the flames had the potential to spawn inside objects and register for damage. So for instance, flame against the Hulk and hit the rear vents or hit damage zones that should not be hittable when you attack it from the front, or shoot through walls for that matter. The change with the charger had to do with the hitbox of the weak point getting desynced and protrude beyond the armored parts. Therefore, the solution was to make it more predictable, but the visual fidelity did not hold up. We're going to resolve these issues, but we need to do it properly, making everything feel better and play better, not trading one for the other. Very quickly, and I think he's referring to the Hulks as a hypothetical. Don't take that as canon, and I hate to try to read into his actual thoughts here, but I don't remember ever seeing players bring out the flamethrower versus automaton Hulks. Who knows? I could be wrong, but I think what he's referring to, again, me just interpreting, don't take it as gospel, is how the flames would travel through the front armor and damage the weak points behind, which we all noticed was gone the moment escalation went live, right? I've commented on it several times, how now when the flames touch a piece of armor, the ricochet comes directly back at you, almost always catching you on fire. For players, we were always used to this being how the flamethrower worked. You could spray from side to side and catch stacked targets on fire, and so when escalation came in and said, nope, it's time for realism, it was a definite shock to the system. The changes to charger hitboxes extending past the back of the visuals, I honestly don't know what or when that will be happening, and to be frank, none of this really helps, right? The flamethrower and flames were gutted, and so far what we are getting is explanations and rationale for why it was done. The last little bit I wanted to touch on today, and by the way, I received so many comments on these Helldivers videos, which, to be really honest with you, as a content creator, is just freaking awesome to see, so yeah, keep them coming. But anyways, the comment I've been seeing a lot of goes something like this. They said, as in Arrowhead said, that they're fixing this or that in the next 60 days, as if what they said in that announcement is gospel, it's canon. And if that is the case, great. But I used to be involved with tons of corporate contracts, and the wording is important. As they say, the devil's in the details. And if you look over Game Director Michael's 60-day plan, at least to me, the only items here that will be fixed are the fire damage mechanic and excessive ragdolling. Chargers are receiving some sort of rework, so no details there, and the game's performance will be improved. Again, no details except for frame rate being the focus. Sorry if you can hear the rain sounds outside. It is absolutely pouring buckets right now, but we're going to continue on with the other 3 items mentioned in this announcement, which are huge in the scope of longevity for the game. They are game balance, primary weapons, and combat and bug fixing. And all of these involve plans with no mention of specific actions or really action at all. We will re-examine our approach to balance. That's a plan. That's meetings. That's internal discussions. We will rethink our design approach to primary weapons and create a plan. I mean, it says it right there in the announcement. We will reprioritize bug fixes so that the more immediate gameplay bugs are prioritized, which you would think they would be doing from day one, but yeah. What you've got here in this 60-day plan, again, from the perspective of someone that has seen his fair share of terms and conditions for much of my adult life, is that you've got a couple of items that are already being openly discussed, fire damage mechanics and ragdolling, and everything else is either vague or studio calls to take a deeper look into what is currently doing and possibly make a change there. Now, like many of you, I want to give Arrowhead the benefit of the doubt. You know I love playing Helldivers, and I would love to see a balanced approach that pulls away from realism and gets back to Helldivers 1.0. I would also be so happy to get primary weapons buffed up to a set level so that we had options on top of options to bring into a mission. And if it doesn't happen like that, if we hit those 60 days and minimal adjustments have been made, at least you know why, because it was there in black and white, in text, in the wording from day one. Scratch that. I want to throw in one more item before we check out your top comments. And I again wanted to swing back around to comments that I received on my last Helldivers video talking about how Johan said he only saw the flamethrower changes via a Facebook post, and how I question why that was the case, as he is the Chief Creative Officer on Helldivers 2. As many of you pointed out, he was on vacation, and to give him a break, which is fair, point made. But what I was trying to say, and apparently I just failed majorly at, was that according to Shams Georgiani, Arrowhead has long lead-up times for development. He said it takes weeks, if not months, to develop whatever they are working on. As far as I know, Johan didn't leave on vacation that far in advance of Escalation of Freedom going live. So the point I was trying to make was that he would have seen a lot of, if not a majority of what was planned to happen to the flamethrower and to flame effects. And if that's the case, seeing it live should have not been a shock, unless he was either not nearly as involved in the work as we all hoped, or there was some last-minute changes made by whatever devs were working on the effects without his knowledge and or consent, meaning we actually had rogue devs at work at Arrowhead. But I wanted to let you know I do take that into consideration, your comments, I mean, and the man does deserve to unplug while on vacation. So point made. Thank you to all my viewers and to all those comments mentioning that fact. And now, as promised, no more delays. It's time for your top 3 comments from my last Helldivers video, starting off with number 1 from Mr. 𝗡𝗘𝗥𝗙. Interesting name there. It says, Pillstedt, our constant screw-ups are holding us back. There. Fixed it for you, Arrowhead. And yeah, I understand this one. Until we get more than explanations and promises, we need to keep watching with both eyes open. Number 2 comes in from MJ533, who says, the more I hear from the devs, the more I am convinced that they accidentally made Helldivers 2 fun and are now only showing us, with all these nerfs, the game they actually intended to release. Interesting idea right there. Maybe Helldivers at launch was not what the devs intended it to be. Maybe they didn't have, I don't know, enough time, so they went with what they had and have been steadily changing it to that initial studio vision. Wow, talk about diving down the Helldivers rabbit hole. And finishing it up with number 3 from Daniel Collins 85, who says, using approved individuals for the test server is the most sus move ever. Well, the testers approved the nerfs, as if they're kind of quoting Arrowhead after one of those test servers is closed. And yeah, that's the issue with NDAs and private servers, right? Arrowhead could run the test, they could receive overwhelming feedback to go in one direction, and they could choose to go in the opposite direction. Test servers are only viable if the devs in the studio will take that feedback to heart. If they don't care, well, you just saw what happened when they don't care. And you saw it with Concord. They ran a closed test and an open beta. The reports are the devs just shrugged off all that player feedback, calling it white noise. Anyways, I think we've touched on everything for today, and if you want to make it into my next video's top 3 comments, you first need to take the time to leave a comment, and who knows, you and your comment could be featured in my next Helldivers upload. Remember to hit subscribe and to ring that notifications bell to receive my future upload alerts. All my socials, including links to all of today's sources, can be found in the video description. Definitely check out that Warframe video I'm going to leave a link to down there. Before I go, a huge thanks to the incredible ladies and gents from across the planet who've taken the plunge, have taken the time to hit subscribe, and tune in daily to support me and my channel as we make that last little push up to 250,000 subscribers. Until the next one, this is LtBuzzLitebeer signing off.